everybody, thanks for joining me. It's time for another talk. This one's going to be about fandom, specifically one that I think is pretty relevant for my channel. We're going to be talking about what it's like to be an AMV editor on YouTube. And if you hear little sounds in the background, that's just my cats. So anyway, let's see. I have been editing AMVs on YouTube since I was about 17 years old, and I turned 27 this year. So yeah, pretty much the last decade I have been editing for YouTube. And yeah, where do I even begin? I've been around long enough to remember a time before YouTube or without YouTube, and just I remember when AMVs first started popping up, you know, back when videos on the internet were just annoying memes and nothing more, you know, ring, 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 in a phone. Anyway, so I was there for kind of like the birth of AMVs, and I was just like, oh, that is so cool. And I would, you know, I would watch, or I would listen to music, and I would imagine basically like my favorite characters to the song. I remember before I was able to edit, I used to like turn on an episode of whatever show I had recorded and mute it, and then just like play the music as like a soundtrack. I did that so much, like especially in middle school. And then finally, after I graduated high school, I got my own laptop, and my biggest issue at first was I had no idea how to like download videos. Like, this was kind of when it was still a new thing, you know, and I even met people who made AMVs and they like would rip their VHSs, you know, they'd like use a camera or something and attach that to their computer and just record the VHS. Like, yeah, it's that old. So, you know, nowadays it's like everybody knows about torrenting or like, you know, YouTube download links or whatever, but back like 10 years ago, this was still kind of a new thing. Like, I had never even heard of torrents at this point. So, you know, I believe I used to rip my work, or like the videos off of YouTube, you know, and that would be how I'd get them on, and then I'd have to rip the songs from YouTube as well, because, you know, it's like you can buy them off iTunes, and back when I first started, I did, in fact, buy every single song that I edited, which obviously I no longer do, because a decade is a long time to be editing. That is a lot of music that I don't technically care to hear twice. Anyway, so yeah, I would rip the songs and the videos all from YouTube using, this was back when you actually could like get downloaders to work on YouTube. YouTube does this thing where every couple of months the links or the download process will no longer work and you have to find a new one, except for KeepFit. KeepFit still works occasionally. But yeah, and then I discovered, you know, then I discovered what torrents were, you know, and I found, like, this is back when Mega Upload was a thing. It's kind of a thing again, but this is back when Mega Upload was massively a thing, and people would, you know, Mega Video was, like, the best option despite its 72-minute thing. And, of course, you know, I finally get around to editing AMVs. I've been wanting to for, like, prior to actually starting, I had been wanting to make AMVs pretty much for like, I think 6 years, like, yeah, a long time. So I was all gung-ho and ready, and, you know, I had my iMovie, and I was super excited to be editing and, you know, match up to the lyrics, you know, each scene perfectly in my head. This is back when I could edit a 3-minute video in like 2 hours. Jesus, I miss those days. Simple times. Anyway, and right as I'm learning how to edit and I'm getting into, you know, the YouTube community and all that, everybody got Sony Vegas. Like, everyone was finding these download links and whatnot to Sony Vegas, and you can get Sony Vegases to work on Macs. I've seen it be done before. It's like some kind of hardware that allows, or software, whatever it is, you know, that allows PC programs to work on a Mac, but I did not know this at the time, so of course I cannot get Sony Vegas for my little MacBook. You know, so I was just stuck with my iMovie for a bit, and I've known editors who were stuck with iMovie for a lot longer, and they are way more skilled than I am. Like, it's so funny that I almost never see Windows Movie Maker anymore. I see iMovie everywhere, but I've met like 3 other Final Cut users, so Anyway, so, you know, everyone's editing Sony Vegas, and let's be honest, we all sucked. All right, 2007, we all sucked because just like everything was effects hell. Like if you ever go back to early 2000 styles, AMVs, just when everyone was discovering Sony Vegas and Final Cut and all that jazz, just, oh my god, they are so hard on the eyes. Like, it's okay to admit it, mine sucked too. Like, there are so many videos of mine, older ones, that I just cannot bring myself to watch because they just hurt my eyes, like the coloring especially. It's just like, oh, why did I do this? But yeah, so I got Final Cut as a Christmas present, because fortunately I do use it for my animations, like if I'm timing the music to the video, or if I'm doing a little bit of color correcting or whatnot, so it comes in handy for that, but I mostly used it for editing. And boy, YouTube has gone through so many ups and downs. Like, I remember when people used to legitimately talk on this website. Like, there were legitimately good ways to communicate on YouTube. You can make those little announcements. People actually talked on channels. I know that's still an option, but I, like, never see it anymore. YouTube doesn't even tell you when you get, like, a PM or whatever. And it's just, like, you gotta go to that message. Maybe it's just me, I don't know, but I always have to go to, like, messaging to be able to get to my messages and whatnot. But, so with my personal experience, a lot of people know my reputation is kind of like a crack editor, you know, crack pairings, I mean. So it's like I take couples that are not canon, most of the time have not even met, and I do this thing called masking, where I will put them in the same scene. For those of you who don't know what masking is, it's basically a way to take away the background so you're left with just the character, and then you essentially green screen them into the scene. So two characters who are not originally in the same scene, you can create the illusion that now they're talking to each other. So how did I get into that? I was always a big fan of crossovers. You know, I just feel like that was something very present in my childhood, you know, especially like the old Cartoon Network advertisements, like the Friday night cartoon things where they would have all the cartoons just drawn in that same atmosphere and announce like the new episodes and blah blah blah. Same with like Nickelodeon, the Nick House Summer Beach House, where like Plankton had this crush on Helga. It's like, anyone else old enough to remember all this? I don't know. But yeah, like, so crossovers and just crack ships in general were always very prevalent in my life, so it just kind of came naturally to me. You know, I was always, you know, wondering, oh, what if these two met? Would they get along? Would they enjoy each other? Blah, blah, blah. And this was also around the same time I had finally come out to myself. Like, I was in the closet pretty much my entire childhood, so a lot of gay ships that probably would have been like hardcore OTPs at age 5. I just like them as friends, and now I look back and it's like, wow, I was so gay. Anyway, so that was another big thing, because also 10 years ago, you know, that we did not have, you know, ships like Ruby and Sapphire and Yuri on Ice and all that other good stuff. You know, it's like, so you kind of had to crack ship if you wanted those gay ships, because I think there were like 3 in existence, you know, and God forbid if you don't like Sailor Moon, you know, you were basically stuck. So yeah, a lot of that, a lot of just kind of, I just remember like I was just editing crack ships because, you know, I was like, well, there's plenty of videos, you know, for the canon couples, you know, so kind of Rath Bashki, you know, it's like, well, if it's something different, then maybe people will be excited again, you know, if anyone else has seen that interview. Yeah, so I just was kind of like, okay, well, there's a million videos of this couple, but if I do this one that has 0 videos, you know, people will probably be like, oh, WTF, and click on it out of curiosity, and if it's well edited, then maybe they'll stay, and that is pretty much exactly what happened, you know. I just, I would just edit whatever felt natural to me. I've been asked over the years if I am only into ships because it's crack, you know, just because it's a weird, bizarre ship between 2 characters who have never met, and the answer is no. I legitimately believe or like think headcanon whatever that there is like that there could be palpable chemistry between these two characters despite them never meeting, you know. And like I just like to ask, you know, what if they did meet, you know? And if they did meet, then yes, I like to genuinely believe that they would get along with each other. So I started doing that, and just whatever came natural to me, whatever felt natural to me, and then people started legitimately commenting. You know, this is before I kind of made it my niche, you know, I was just kind of throwing whatever at the wall and seeing what would stick, much like I'm doing with my art career right now, you know. But people started commenting like, oh, you're really good at editing crack ships, you're really good at making it look like these two are interacting. And it's around that time I officially decided, okay, this is my niche, you know, this is just what I'm gonna do. And specifically, I did that a lot with the Yu-Gi-Oh fandom. My friend recommended, I watched Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid, you know, like I got through the first season and then after that I lost interest, but then a friend of mine recommended the abridged series and I loved it, so I got back into it and I finally finished the whole thing. And that was quite the few weeks, you know, finally finishing up watching Yu-Gi-Oh after all those years. You know, so I edited a lot for Yu-Gi-Oh! And if you had told me, like, you know, at age 10 that I was going to meet, like, some of the best friends of my life, you know, some of the people that know me on YouTube have known me almost that entire decade I've been on, that I was going to meet some of my best friends, some people that I would know for years and years and years because of Yu-Gi-Oh! I probably would have laughed in your face because that just, it's like, yes, I watched it, but it wasn't as prevalent to me as like Sailor Moon or I don't know, like Spider-Man or something was of my childhood. But here we are, you know. So, yeah, I was in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fandom quite a few years. Kind of got out of it, got back into it. I just remember going back to AMVs. I just remember, yeah, you know, it's like the early 2000s, we were all just effects crazy, you know, and then finally, around 2010, 2011, 2012, that era, people really started to calm down, like massively calm down. I remember thinking and being very honest about it and talking to other people who agreed that those were kind of like the lazy years of editing, and that just might be my circle, you know. I can't speak from a universal standpoint, everyone's experience as an AMV editor, but I remember, you know, saying that to my tight group of friends. I was like, it feels like everyone has gotten so lazy, you know. It's like, because we all finally got our effects heavy out of us, you know, but now it was like essentially the reverse. And I'm not saying that like raw editing, you know, editing with very few effects is automatically lazy, because it's not, you know. It's like there's still plenty of ways. If you match the clips to the lyrics, if you use just a bajillion episodes, I know that's not always possible with movies, you know, but if you use like a bajillion episodes, your timing is on point. There's like a million ways you can make raw editing look really, really good, and I've seen it, you know. And it's like, when it is done really, really good, it's really, really effective. Like, I find myself rewatching those videos a lot. That being said, raw editing can be very, very, very lazy. Like, if you just use, if it's an MEP part, I can understand, but if you use, like, one episode and just use one clip after another clip after another clip, and it's, like, all the same scene, it's just the same character, and crossfade into it, it's like, you can kind of tell it took like 5 minutes to make. Like, I'm sorry, I'm being honest, you know. And this was kind of the era where that was very, very common, you know. I don't really know why. I think it was because, at least in my group of friends, that was when we all started going off to college or starting school or getting jobs and all that. And suddenly we found ourselves with a lot less time, but still that desire to edit. So we went from effects heavy. I used to, because I took a year off of school after I graduated high school, I would upload practically 3 videos a week, and I ended up with like 300 videos on my YouTube, and that is why I had as many subscribers as I did, because I just would not go away. Anyway, so that was when we were all kind of leaving, but we still wanted to hang on to the community, so it was kind of like, yeah, everyone just really, really chilled down. And I also remember this was the era when comments just, like, stopped. Like, they just kind of eradicated themselves, you know? I remember, because I used to, like, upload and then, you know, it's like, okay, wait 20 minutes or wait until I get so many views, and pretty much right away I would get a comment, you know, and it's just like, and I would get a handful of comments. And then just one day, you know, 2010 to 2012, that era, just one day it all just kind of stopped. Like, all of a sudden just commenting just stopped. And everyone would get pretty much like half or even less than half of the comments they used to get. And I remember people saying, oh no, it's because it's finals times, you know, everyone is busy. And here I am, like, you know, 6 years later, and that's still pretty much the case. Like, that's still very much the case. And I could, I'll get more into commenting and feedback later. I might even save that for another vlog because it's kind of relevant to other aspects of fandom, the like fan art and fan fiction and all that. But I might get back to that. Anyway, so that happened. Actually, thinking about the correlation of like videos getting lazier and comments suddenly disappearing, it makes sense. Anyway, and then what happened after that? I don't really remember years 2013 to about 2015. I think it was just kind of, we were all in the motions, you know. It was just like, you'd edit, you'd upload, and people would comment. We're a little more clean, a little polished and everything. And then around I would say 2015, 2016, everyone got that master program we all know as After Effects. And since then, that is when things have really, like, the standards have gone up so tremendously high, because we've all gotten out of our effects heavy days. We've gotten out of kind of the raw days, however you want to say. So now it's like, we all know what we're doing. We all have edited long enough, we all have worked with fancy programs long enough that to get After Effects, you know, it's like, I'm mostly thinking of the non-Disney community, and that seems to be the main community that still is prevalent in the AMV world. I really, ironically, I don't really watch a lot of anime AMVs, mostly because I don't watch a lot of anime these days. Like, just as an artist and everything, you know, it's like I find a lot of my time is taken up by what I'm doing. That shows that I have to sit down and actively watch. It's a little difficult for me. Anyway. So I don't know a lot about like the AMV, or I'm sorry, the anime AMV community, because it's just been a long time since I've actively watched anime, that it's like there's a lot of typography. It's very, very pretty. It's not my style, but it's very, very pretty. Yeah, and that's about all I have to say. Whereas Disney, it's like I've seen every movie ever used in those AMVs, and it's storytelling, which is much easier for me to grasp onto. Anyway, but yeah, so After Effects came into the picture, and just masking especially, like, just went way, way up. Like, I remember when we all first started masking, and, you know, it'd be really simple masks, like you had that constant mask of the back of someone's head, you know, to show that the other character was talking to them face to face, and it would just be the back of their head, just masked on. And I understand that's effective and sometimes relevant in how you're pacing the story or whatever, but when it's the only mask you do, it's boring. Like, I'm just being honest. Anyway, and I said that back then, and people fought me then, and I said, okay, but it is boring. Okay. Anyway, and lots of chroma key, which I still use when I can use chroma key, I do, because chroma key is a useful thing. I know Sony Vegas, it kind of sucks, but on Final Cut it is a useful tool. Use it when you can. A lot of feathering, just a lot of really, really unclean masks, you know, a lot of thick edges. And now with After Effects and the rotoscope tool, and, you know, just a lot of different options to mask and everything, it got so clean, you know, and just, yeah, the expectations of a good man-up just went up so high. Like, I remember, you know, it used to be you would, if you wanted to get these two characters to kiss, and you know, they're a crack ship, they've never even met, so let alone kiss, you would find a kiss from something else and then just zoom in on it and let that be the illusion. And now it's like you find that kiss from something else and then mask the lips onto the two characters and put their heads together to really create the illusion that they're kissing. You know, it's just like way up. And now there's head swaps, you know, where you put a character on a different character's body so they're wearing a new outfit. There's just all kinds of just incredible things people do, and it is incredible, you know, because it takes a long time. And I personally do not have After Effects. I do a lot of my masking now on Photoshop. I find it, well, I used After Effects in college. I'm not going to say it's easier, but it's definitely easier than masking on Final Cut, because Final Cut, I think the newest one finally got the pen tool. Don't quote me on that though, but I think the newest one finally got the pen tool. My version was discontinued, does not have the pen tool. So back in the day, if I could not chroma key, I could not mask because it was just impossible. But now I use Photoshop and I go frame by frame by frame, and I do my little paint overs, which is where depending on what it is, I can change eye color, I can change hair color. Sometimes I completely change outfits, you know, like if I want a character looking a certain way or having a certain expression, but they're not in the outfit that I was using for the rest of that portion of the AMV, then I will like just paint it on them and go from there, you know, just to keep up with the continuity, because I edit storytelling wise. It's just easier for me, you know. I kind of compare special effects editing and storytelling editing to special effects animating and character animation. You know, it's like it definitely takes, you know, a certain eye and a certain artist to be able to just draw water or draw fire or fireworks or something to that effect. Excuse me. But you know, it's like with characters, you know, that's very organic. You know, it's like we see ourselves every day and we look in the mirror, so it's a little easier to understand. That's for animation. With editing, that's basically how I feel. It's like special effects editing. It definitely takes, you know, a special eye and a great artist, because it is beautiful, it is incredible, to be able to pull it off. And storytelling editing is just a completely different ballpark. So there's definitely that difference, and just, you know, storytelling editing to me is like character animation. You know, it's just I feel like I can make it a little more organically, and I suck at special effects editing. That's what all this amounts to. I really suck at special effects editing. I don't understand typography. Like, god damn, it can look amazing, but I feel like I'm just, you know, writing an essay, typing all those lyrics. I'm just like, no, this is not fun. Not fun at all. Does not compute. Anyway, so that, I guess, leads us into today's world with AMVs, and the big thing I've noticed is that there really is not an emphasis on AMVs anymore. Like, if anything, I see a lot of people who make fun of them, you know. It's like I've seen a lot of people just be like, oh, who makes AMVs anymore? This is like, you know, 2007, you know. It's like Windows Movie Maker, Linkin Park, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know if that's just because, you know, people these days are just too young to kind of remember how it was or something, or I have like a bajillion theories as to why AMV editing has really died down. It hasn't died out, but it has died down. Like, I definitely just do not see AMV editing as prevalent in, like, fan works and content as much as I used to. One of the reasons, I think, is because with YouTube anyway, you can't really monetize off of them, and it's like these days with all the different ways to crowdfund and so many people trying to brand themselves, I just feel like there's definitely more emphasis on trying to dedicate your channel to something that you can monetize off of, hence why I'm here. Anyway, but then I also, some of the things that happened that I think led to kind of the downfall of AMV editing, I noticed that there was another era, a really short era, where people started editing fan art, you know, and editing images, and people still edit manga, you know, that was something that happened at first. People would edit manga, and they would still edit fan art. They'd just edit it like kind of a slideshow thing where you use the crossfade and the zoom in, but it got really, really extravagant back in like 2015, 2016, and that helped a lot, like if you were working with a character that maybe didn't have a lot of screen time, or maybe a ship that like is less popular but still kind of known but not canon enough to really work with like the clips that are given. And then, you know, it's like, oh, there's fan art of both, and I can just use that, you know, and that'll be much more effective, you know, because and some fandoms you kind of had to, like I know with just as an example, Homestuck, you know, it's like that's like a webcomic and everything. Everyone knows what Homestuck is, but it's like if you were to edit that, you would kind of have to use fan art or images of some kind, you know, so there's that. So at some point, if you wanted to edit an AMV, you had no choice but to use fan art. And it also was like kind of a, gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like converger, combiner, something like that. Because there used to be sort of this stigma, not all the time. You know, I've seen AMVs like for a long time. This stigma wasn't 100%, but it was still definitely there to kind of keep anime and Western animation separate because the art styles were so dramatically different. But with fan art, you know, not only would people draw, but they would draw in different styles. You know, you would see like Western characters drawn in the anime style. And when you have something like a fem/MEP group, and, you know, it's like you want to dedicate it to anime because there's a lot more, you know, fem/ships in anime, but then over in America you got things like Bubbline and Rooffire and all these other ships becoming canon. It's like you want to celebrate that as well, you know. It's like, well, how do you combine the two when the art styles is so dramatically different? Oh, with fan art. So people started doing that, and it's like it became a lot less limited than how it is working with clips. However, the problem with that was the artists started to see this and understandably, you know, became upset that their work was being used without their permission, pretty much. And so for a brief while, people were really, really big on crediting all the fan art and making sure to link back to the artist, but even just like a 30-second MEP part can have so much fan art in it, and to credit all that and then to like have an entire MEP with fan art. And sometimes even if you do credit, you know, it's like artists are still upset that you used it at all without their permission. So that like became a huge part of editing that had so many conveniences, and then it just basically died. So that's one of the reasons I think AMV editing has come to such a downfall, on top of not being able to monetize, and on top of, I don't know much about like the fan fiction community because I really don't write fan fiction and I don't read a lot anymore, but with fan art at the very least, you know, there's definitely ways to profit off of that. You know, you could sell commissions, you could have a Redbubble account, although Redbubble's kind of a bitch with copyright. You can, there's ways to, you can join like a zine or like zine or like a Reanimate and just get your name out there and get yourself noticed. And again, you know, that can lead back to commissions, or, you know, just little things like that, you know, that it's a little more prevalent to go into like fan art or whatnot, if you're looking to kind of make a profit off of your fan content. And also these days, like on YouTube, what has kind of replaced AMVs are the animatics, you know, kind of going back to my fan art theory where it's just like, oh, you want these characters to do a certain thing, but they don't do that in canon, you can't use the clips, you know, it's like, draw it yourself if you can, you know, or, you know, just draw the singers themselves. It's like, oh, you know, Hamilton is this really popular musical, but it doesn't really have a lot of clips online, or I haven't actively tried to watch it, I don't know, but just like, let's let's add an animatic to these songs. You know, what would these songs look like if they were animated? You know, that kind of things. And again, that kind of, you can't really monetize off of that because of the copyrighted songs, but again, you can put yourself out there that it could lead to, you know, people wanting to commission your work, or, you know, join a Patreon page and have people, you know, crowdfund you so they can see more of this fan content that you're creating, you know. Or there's reviews, you know, it's like instead of creating content about the characters, people just talk in depth about the characters or talk in depth about the show. And I have mixed feelings on that, but that's a talk for another time. Just, this is getting very, very, very long, and I do apologize, but like I said repeatedly, I have been editing for 10 years, so I just have a lot to say about this subject, and I'm not totally sure how to wrap it up. Just kind of, yeah, you know, it's like, the AMV community has died down a lot, except for the non-Disney group. Like, they're still very, very relevant. And again, I don't know much about, like, other anime editors because I'm not really in that circle. I kind of just watch 1 or 2 shows, and that's really about it. I will say that Twixter is very overrated. Like, before I end this video, that is just something I want to say. You don't have to, just because you can add Twixter does not mean that you should. And most times you really shouldn't. Like, I know that it fades with action, but it can be done with action, and I'm just saying there's a reason slow motion is done mostly with action, and just seeing these characters move extremely slow and all they're doing is turning their head, it's not as impressive as you think it is. Please stop using Twixter so often. Anyway, so gosh, how do I wrap this up? I guess just by saying that, you know, it's like I've really enjoyed my time as an editor, and just seeing this crowd kind of grow up and move on and everything like that, you know, and it's like I still want to continue being an editor, you know, it's like that's still, I've been doing it for so long, it's just still such a relevant part of my life, you know, I still hear songs, you know, as I said in my other vlogs, I still hear songs and will think of a story or think of a character or a pairing or something, and it's like there is still something, you know, kind of fulfilling about just seeing these 2 characters interact with each other. It's like, yes, you can draw it and everything, but it's like when you see like the canon clips of them interacting and knowing that's something you created, you know, it's like there's something kind of magical about that. So I definitely believe that like AMV editing can bounce back, that maybe, you know, maybe we're just going through, you know, a little drought or whatever, you know, that kind of thing, where it's just like, okay, you know, it's like AMV editing has kind of died down, but maybe one day it will come back, you know, maybe we just need a fresh look on it, and everyone has kind of done everything, and we've all evolved, and it's very impressive, you know, what people are able to do these days. Like, it's incredible, but, you know, it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, it's still just more effects, or still just more storytelling, or what have you. So maybe we just need some new people to come in with a fresh eye, and maybe it'll get back up. You know, I don't think AMV editing will ever officially die unless it becomes like, you know, like you get beheaded for using a copyrighted song. I don't know, you know, which I sincerely doubt as well. But you know, unless it was something unless there were like extreme consequences, I don't think AMV editing will ever officially die. I think it'll just be like what I'm doing right now. We're all just kind of going on a mini hiatus, you know, but we'll come back. We'll come back. So yeah, this has been a very long talk. I am so sorry. I did not mean for it to go on that long. Hopefully, honestly, a handful of people listening to this have probably seen, like, my AMV editing evolution throughout these years, because I have known some of y'all for a long time, and it's great, you know, it's like, I probably wouldn't have started my entering into the internet world on another site, unless there was something better than YouTube, which YouTube sucks, but there really is not a good alternative. I know Vimeo exists, but, you know, that's like, no, you're not gonna get popular on Vimeo. I don't know. Anyway, that's for demo reels. Anyway, but yeah, it's just like, just meeting all the people that I have met and just kind of getting into fandom this way and everything. It's been a wild ride, but yeah, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'd ask back for that 1 year when I first started college, but that's about it. So yeah, that's about it. I'm gonna end myself right now before I just keep ranting all day long. So yeah, this has been the first Fandom Talks. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will be discussing many other topics from here on out, both with fandom and other discussions that I talked about in my introduction video. If you like my content and you like what I do, and if you are able to support, I will link my Patreon page or my Ko-fi page. If you are interested in some of the art that I'm working on right now, I do have a website. I'll link that as well. Thank you for listening. I love you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.